and so I've lived here my entire life. And the reason I came in was to talk a little bit about Hurricane Celia's 53rd anniversary.
Absolutely.
And what I can recall is some things that people will not understand unless they live through it, I think. What happened was, it was my 6th birthday, and I woke up early in the morning. I was going to play putt-putt golf for my birthday, and somebody said, "I'm sorry, Tyner, you're not having your birthday today." And I said, "Why is that?" They said, "Because Celia's coming." And I said, "Who invited her? And how does she have the right to call up my birthday?" And you know, from there, you know, we lived on Dolphin Street in between Alameda and Staples. We stayed at our house, which is a bad idea. This is an evacuation county. I learned later in life. You buckle down your home, you don't stay here. You secure your property and get out, because lives will be lost, especially from hurricane surge. It's not so much the wind, it's the water. And a couple of things that people won't think about that I recall is when we learned the hurricane was coming, my mother filled up the bathtub. We only had one bathtub. She filled it up with water so we could have drinking water. What you need to expect is long power outages after a strike. You have to expect sewage system failures, and of course electric power. And since you invited me in, the wind didn't scare me so much, and the rain did not scare me as much. After the storm, when I saw a 2x4 go through a telephone pole, you realize that your life is in the balance through such a storm. What I recall after that, the scary part for me was there's no electricity and you don't have air conditioning, and it's August, right? Today's August 3rd. I wish I was 53, but no, I was 6 years old then. I'm 59. What you got to do during a storm is survive. And if you can't evacuate, that's what you need to do. But what happens is there's a scary part of the storm when you're a young child that you don't understand. There's no air conditioning, no electricity, and you open up the rooms to your house, and I had my own little bedroom with the windows open, and I got scared. I had to go to bed with my sisters, and I told my mom and dad, "Close those windows. I'm going to bed with my sisters."
For a 6-year-old, all of the information that you get leading up to the storm, let's talk about that first. We'll talk about it kind of in stages. It's your birthday. You hear that your birthday party is going to be canceled. Just the stages of your parents explaining to you about this hurricane that's coming towards us. Kind of explain about that.
The information that my parents gave me were, you know, kind of foggy, I think. And, you know, my dad's secretary and teenage son came to stay with us because they lived in an apartment. Back then, you thought you could stand out any storm, right? And it's not the smart thing to do. You don't know what's going to happen to you, especially in low-lying areas. And eventually, what happens is, after the storm with no electricity and stuff like that, my sister showed up and she had ice in a cup. And we're all like, where did you get that? And I was like, "She's got a cold drink, Mom, Dad." What? I mean, the problems are unimaginable that you go through when you get a storm like that. Don't take it lightly. If something's coming in your way, get out. It's the best thing to do.
Now, once you know that the storm, everybody knows it's going to hit this area, it's not going to go up, it's not going to go down, the target is on us. Do you remember anything about that, knowing that, hey, this is inevitable?
As a 6-year-old, no. But being in, public information officer and emergency management, I remember in 2007, whatever year Hurricane Rita was, we had a Cat 5, and its track was right on us. Terry Shamsey, the county judge at the time, called out for a mandatory evacuation. And that Rita turned up, right towards Galveston and Houston at the last minute. But that's too risky. You can't count on weather very much. Alan Holt will tell you, but the forecast cone only predicts the storm in a very limited amount of time. Things change. The National Weather Service does predictions, and it's hit or miss, I think.
You think Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature is going to do?
Mother Nature does what Mother Nature does.
Now, we know it's going to hit us, and now you're starting to hear the wind and everything else. Take us back when it's actually hitting you and what it sounded like.
There was a huge rushing of wind. The rain was going horizontal down the street. We actually looked out the windows. Alan Holt will tell you, don't use tape on the windows, board them up. We've been friends for a long time, but what happens is, back in the day, way back then, me and my sisters were taping up windows. That doesn't help very much.
Need to board them up.
Got to board them up if you can. And one thing I will never forget, when I was 6, we're looking out the window. We had a mesquite tree blow down. And as the wind changed directions, we've got a big plate glass window, and the mesquite tree is edging closer and closer. It had broken at the base, and it's starting to move and starting to rattle the glass. My dad went outside and got some rope and some stakes and tied that mesquite tree down to keep it from banging on the house and the glass.
In the midst of the storm, he's out there doing that?
He did that.
Wow. Were you fearful for your dad that he might get injured or anything?
My dad was fearless, but I tell you what scared me most about the whole situation. After the hurricane, there was a curfew, and the National Guard came in town. And the curfew, I believe, was 8 p.m. And my dad went to help out a friend. And he went to help out a friend who lost his roof. And my dad didn't come back home. And what really, really worried me was as a young kid, you don't understand what the National Guard is. And, whatever it was, the president or the governor at the time issued that. And you don't understand what a curfew is. But, my mom told me, whoever's out after dark can get arrested. And Dad didn't show up after dark. Sometime later he showed up.
Did you think your dad had been arrested?
I probably thought he did. Yeah.
How are you What was your reaction when he showed up and he was safe and sound?
Hi, Daddy. It's my birthday. Where's my cake? Not really. How about a cupcake?
With this happening on your birthday, it seems like it's almost cemented in your head and in your memory. Hard to forget it.
I remember throughout life when anybody mentions Hurricane Celia, I raise my hand and go, hit on my birthday. And they're like, Hurricane Celia was more than a party crasher for me. It destroyed so many lives here. And, I think it's better to, look at your emergency management plan, get out of town, and take care of your kids and get your medications, follow the list of, emergency management procedures that you have for yourself, rather than die. It's so much easier to deal with life than it is death.
Do you think people get the sense of, well, it's not going to happen to me? I mean, I see it happen in other places in Florida, this, that, and the other, where there's destruction, loss of life, but it ain't going to happen to me. Do you think there's a little bit of that?
There is a little bit of that. We learned a lesson. In my experience, we had Hurricane Brett that hit south of us. We had Hurricane Allen in 1980 that came close. And then obviously Hurricane Harvey, which destroyed Port Aransas and Rockport. And I mean, it's something you got to take seriously.
We got Refugio pretty bad too, didn't it?
Refugio, oh my God. On a personal note, I've been playing golf in Rockport for, I don't know, 15 years. And after Hurricane Harvey, they were shut down for a long time. And one thing that happened, the next time I played Rockport, after about 3 or 4 years, I drove out there and I looked and I was like, why is the sun blinding me? It's like God came in and shaved all the oak trees down to 10 feet high, and the sun's blaring in my face driving out there to play golf. The trees are coming back in Rockport, I think, but it's really a devastating thing. Just all the garbage and waste and all the condos and houses destroyed. As long as there's no loss of life, that's what makes preparedness worthwhile.
Now, it's back to being a 6-year-old boy, and you walk out of your house for the first time, and you're looking around and you're looking at the destruction, around your house, around the city. What did you think?
I mean, what I saw was there was actually a moment that my parents allowed me to walk outside. And this is going to sound bizarre, but we were in the eye, and you look up, and it's a blue sky. And they let me stay out there for a while. They bailed out a car that in the driveway that got a broken window, got the all the water that had fallen in, covered it up with something. But then what happens after is debris. And what you do is, I guess, you get brooms, you get rakes, you clean your property, you clear the streets, and you try to get back to normal. And it's a slow process, but you can do it. if you want to live here, which I don't know that many people do right now with 100-degree temperatures every day, but the winters are very mild, but that's what we get for living in South Texas.
When you drive down Ocean Drive and you see the water, you see the houses, you see the parks, kind of makes it worth it when you see the beach and beautiful scenery that's here in Corpus Christi, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful place to live.
Now, knowing that there was death during Hurricane Celia, how does a 6-year-old process that? That there was a loss of life and that, hey, maybe if it had hit your house, maybe you wouldn't be here.
Surprisingly, I think the only damage to our house was a blown down fence and that mesquite tree that I told you about. I think everybody that me and my family knew survived, and you know, explaining death to a 6-year-old is something that may not happen. It just may not happen, and so I don't recall a specific event of that happening.
Now, if you were 6 years old, you're probably going to school. Did you remember your school or anything? Anything changed around school?
I went to Wilson, went to middle school at Hamlin. As you may know, they build schools a little bit sturdier than houses. I think they all survived. What I do remember, Woolco, which is where Sutherland's is now on Staples, Parkdale Plaza. Woolco was a popular department store, and it got completely crushed into nothing.
Yeah, I think we have video of the Wilco store, and I know a lot of people used their services and went to their store.
Another thing, real quick. One thing that people need to be mindful of, I think, is you can't take law enforcement into your own hands. And what happens, unfortunately, the aftermath of a storm can be just as dangerous as the storm itself. What happens is people try to, there's potential looters, there's potential people that come to move debris and charge you an exorbitant amount of money to remove trees and debris and all that stuff. Got to be very careful and take your time and make sure you're you're making the best decision when you do that.
Okay. How long did it take? I know Rockport is still recovering some of this place, but I mean, you drive through it, they pretty much got it together. Port Aransas, Refugio, they pretty much got it together. But if you look hard enough, you can still see some remnants of what happened. Do you remember how long it took for things to seem normal again?
You know, I think it was about 2 to 4 weeks before people in Corpus Christi got power back on. In my opinion, resiliency starts with hard work. A lot of people just leave. If their house is not insured, they just go, you know what? We lost everything. We're getting out. People that want to live here, that desire to live here, find ways to stay here. And how they do it is, I think, you make a plan to restore your property, and always have insurance, because if you don't, you gotta have windstorm. And if you don't, I think that's why a lot of people leave. One interesting note I can't remember the name of the hurricane, but when, I don't know if it was Ina. What was the name of that hurricane that hit Galveston?
Was it Ida?
Was it Ida? I said Ina. Anyway, one interesting fact, over the Bolivar Peninsula, when it got wiped out and the storm surge started coming in, surprisingly, there was very, very, very many house fires. And what happened was people caught their own place on fire because they didn't have rainstorm, windstorm, but they had house insurance and fire protection. So there was a lot of burning houses in Galveston. No, I don't want to. Don't repeat that. A lot that will encourage a lot of people to burn houses.
So, anything else that you'd like to tell me about Hurricane Celia and your memories of it? Of the hurricane.
My final thought. When a hurricane shuts down your power, shuts down the water, shuts down commerce at your location, and you don't know when or what's going to happen to recover, you need to understand, I think, that you got to have some canned goods. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you have to have things to eat. You got to make sure you have water. Food and water are necessities in life for humans. And if you haven't planned for that, you're in a very vulnerable position because you don't know when it's going to hit you. Yeah, you have planning time, but listen, that's why all the stores empty all their shelves. Why don't you stock up ahead of time and not worry about it? And that way you're ready. You need, in my opinion, the experts say 3 to 4 days. I say 2 weeks. It doesn't cost that much to get a bunch of canned goods and water to to make plans for what you need.
Sounds like smart advice. All righty. Well, I do thank you, Tyner. Appreciate it.
Oh, uh-oh.